are you guys coming into these systems? How are you helping them kind of meet like the new limits that they're needing to hit? Stuff like phosphorus of 0.5 and stuff like that.
Yeah, the membranes, if somebody's got a phosphorus limit, we can either biologically design the system to achieve that level of phosphorus in the effluent, or we can add a metal salt very simply and achieve very, very low phosphorus levels. The systems are very, very highly automated. And so one of the advantages that can often offer to rural communities is the fact that an operator doesn't necessarily need to go to a facility. If
some of these communities, they are kind of decommissioning these lagoons, do you guys have a way, either A, of coming in with a full solution, or B, do you kind of add your membranes onto that? Like, how do you kind of look at that situation?
Yeah,
for tankage, do you guys put a concrete tank or something and then sit your equipment on top of that, or to get that smaller footprint? Or?
So one of the
Do you have an existing lagoon or a treatment process that's not quite hitting those low nitrogen and phosphorus limits? Well, today on Engineers for Communities, we've got Kevin Crane with Kubota Membranes, and he's going to talk about kind of their process and setup and how they go about approaching and removing some of those nutrients from your system, and then also how they can help you future-proof. So for example, if you're dealing, you're under 2 MGD and you haven't yet dealt with Reg 85 and you've got till the end of December 2027 and you're trying to lower those limits, well, coming kind of right behind it, some of the stuff CDPHE is looking at is Reg 31, more stream-based standards, which are going to make it even more stringent on you. And so what he'll talk about here in this episode is the future-proofing of your system, why to consider something like his product, and as well as how operationally friendly it is, using remote monitoring SCADA systems, easy to take tests for your operators and whatnot. So anyway, enjoy today's show.
All right, I've got Kevin here with Kubota. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Certainly, my pleasure.
So we mostly try to gear towards the more rural communities. So think about a lagoon built in the 70s.
Yeah.
Are you guys coming into these systems? How are you helping them kind of meet like the new limits that they're needing to hit? Stuff like phosphorus of 0.5 and stuff like that.
Yeah, the membranes that we utilize at the heart of our membrane bioreactor systems are going to do an excellent job for those types of communities, because we do what we call future proofing. With our membranes, it's very simple and straightforward for us to design a system such that not only are we going to meet your current regulatory requirements, but in all likelihood, we can also help meet any future requirements you may have. And so if somebody's got a phosphorus limit, we can either biologically design the system to achieve that level of phosphorus in the effluent, or we can add a metal salt very simply and achieve very, very low phosphorus levels. We've got several installations in the Chesapeake Bay watershed where we have very low total nitrogen, as well as very low phosphorus limits. And so we can take that experience and then provide it to those counties, those rural folks who may have those more stringent limits as well.
We're talking about the operations of your membranes.
Yeah.
How do operators like them? What do they like, or what should they be considering for yours versus others?
Yeah, so that's really one of the things that we try and focus on is the operational simplicity of our systems. Full caveat, I used to be an operator before moving to the dark side of sales. And as soon as I got a chance to run a Kubota MBR, I never wanted to run anything ever again. So as a typical conventional activated sludge plant operator, you have to be very, very, very focused on where your mixed liquor concentrations are at to make sure that your sludge is settling properly, you don't end up with thin flock, you don't have filaments, all of these kind of concerns. And so you're very, very focused on, as I say, that mixed liquor quality. With our membranes, because we don't care about the settling characteristics, the operations of it becomes much, much more straightforward and more simple. There are still things you need to do. You need to, do your daily rounds. You're going to collect permit samples. You're going to collect data. But other than that, it's really preventative maintenance on rotating equipment. and a periodic cleaning of the membranes. You have to do that once every 3 or 4 months. But other than that, the systems are very, very highly automated. And so one of the advantages that can often offer to rural communities is the fact that an operator doesn't necessarily need to go to a facility if an alarm comes in. Quite often, just by checking it on SCADA, they can log into the plant, make a slight tweak to the process, and then adjust it and move on to the next kind of thing that they need to deal with at the facility.
Yeah, that's super, super helpful. They probably love that.
Yeah, I mean, back in one of my iterations, I advertised that I could run a plant in Bangalore, India, from my house in Bangor, Maine, because just as long as I've got a SCADA connection, we've got a high level of automation, and so I can make all the tweaks I need to.
Some of these communities, they are kind of decommissioning these lagoons. Do you guys have a way, either A, of coming in with a full solution, or B, do you kind of add your membranes onto that? Like, how do you kind of look at that situation?
Yeah, the lagoon ends up being an interesting challenge because it's such a commitment as far as footprint goes, right? It's usually a big pond, and then that decommissioning process can be kind of intense sometimes. What we've typically done, and you know how typical is in our industry, it's
usually there's a unique solution to every single thing.
Right. And so what we've found is usually best is that lagoon just kind of stays there, but then we build typically a building next to it that's going to house the packaged plant solution that we have to offer. So that just sits right next to it. And then they just kind of decommission that lagoon.
So you kind of just built, because your footprint, just for context, 1/5 the size of lagoon, 10th, it's much smaller, right?
Oh, for a lagoon plant, 1/10 I would think would be big. It might be 1/20th of the size.
And for tankage, do you guys put a concrete tank or something and then sit your equipment on top of that, or to get that smaller footprint? Or?
So one of the things, because our membranes have a microporous structure to them, they prevent any solids from leaving the system. Literally, the only thing that can come through the membrane is soluble material. So what that translates into with an MBR is that whereas a conventional plant may be running at about 2,500 milligrams per liter in their mixed liquor, we're going to be operating somewhere between 10 to 15,000 milligrams per liter. Yeah, so we've just completely shrunk up that footprint very, very dramatically. And so our equipment is usually going to sit within the tanks themselves, and we have a variety of offerings depending on what works best for the client. It could be fiberglass reinforced plastic. It could be precast concrete. It could be stainless steel. It really just depends what's their flow rate, what's the effluent criteria, how do they want to house the system. We've done plants up in New York where we've done precast concrete and just left everything outside. We need to be aware of freeze protection, those sorts of things in that type of situation. We've done plants south of the Mason-Dixon where everything's just outside on a concrete pad.
Yep.
Because
you can just put a steel tank on a pad and nothing's.
And down in Texas, we put everything in the shade, right? Because it's so hot, you put just kind of a lean-to over the top of it because you don't want the operators boiling to death in the middle of summer. So we really almost have a solution for any type of application.
So the camera died just after Kevin made this statement here, but I do want to thank him very much for coming on and sharing his insights. And also, if you've got an existing lagoon or a system that you think has pretty stringent effluent requirements, go ahead, reach out to us. Here's our phone number, and we would be happy to help provide at least some advice, some materials that might be able to help get you going in the right direction. We love making these shows, and we're excited for publishing the next one.